Hello, and welcome to Vatech America. Today, we come to you from Cypress, California, the site of our brand new, state-of-the-art facility and world-class showroom. I'm sure your decision to choose Vatech wasn't an easy one, with so many options on the market. At the end of the day, whatever led you to Vatech, we're grateful that you did choose us as your imaging partner. It could have been from a variety of different reasons. Image quality, support, industry-leading warranty, or the education platform that you're going to experience here today. Ultimately, our job as your imaging partner is to ensure that you and your team implement this technology seamlessly. Enjoy the next hour with the Vatech education team, and thank you again for choosing Vatech America.
Welcome to your Vatech education experience. At the conclusion of today's sessions, you will understand the available modes for your new Vatech device, be able to accurately position patients, resulting in high quality images, and also efficiently navigate the Vatech software.
In addition to this training session, Vatech America has created a customized educational experience for you. The Vatech Education Academy has over 250 hours of on-demand content right from our website. We broadcast weekly 20-minute lunch and learn sessions on various clinical topics and ongoing training sessions customized for you.
Before we begin, I would like to point out the chat feature on your screen. This allows you to chat with Vatech team members during your training session.
Before today's live session, we prepared a presentation of our software workflow, including the most common questions and concerns, including CBCT image acquisition and how to identify patient movement, panoramic troubleshooting and image quality, CBCT exporting, and an introduction to our 3D software, EZ3DI.
Thank you for choosing Vatech as your imaging partner. Here we are at our Vatech Education Academy. We are at vatechamerica.com/education. Let's look at some of the content within the Academy portal. Here you will find options to connect with a training specialist, launching our team viewer, or FAQ area for frequently asked questions. The quick reference area provides short training modules answering the most common questions that we receive. Videos and resources. The bulk of our education modules are located here. Viewing left to right, you will find device video modules including imaging for 3D, 2D, and intraoral tutorials, followed by software modules, and finally recorded webinars which include past lunch and learn sessions and clinical partner sessions with industry key opinion leaders. To access, simply select your area of interest and create your account. Selecting a device or software option navigates you to the training modules. This will be an overview of your Green X device. First, let's talk about the on-off switch. It's a green toggle, which is located on the back of the device. You want to go ahead and turn that on in the morning. The device will rotate and go through some checks. In the evening, you want to go ahead and turn the machine off. Under the horizontal column, there's a red button. It's the emergency stop switch. If that is depressed, it will illuminate red. Turn that counterclockwise to turn the device back on. Let's talk about the touchpad. On the front of the device, you have your column up and column down buttons. You also have your chin rest up and down, your beam on and off, which toggles on your positioning beams, beam up and beam down, which is going to be for your Frankfurt horizontal beam, and lastly, once you have your patient positioned, the ready return button. Your device also includes a hand switch, which is your up and down for the entire device, or to raise and lower the column. Over on the side, you have your canine beam adjustment and your temple support wheel, where you can open and close your temple supports. Next, let's go ahead and look at our appliances. The Green X device has one chin rest. Also comes with your bite stick. And over here on the trap door, on the side, you have different appliances. Let's start with your dentureless cup. You also have a taller appliances for TMJ and sinus. These appliances interchange on the chin rest. So I'm going to go ahead and take my bite stick and it slides into the slot there. If I want to take that out, I'm going to put my dentureless cup and it's also going to slide into the chin rest there. Finally, we talked about the TMJ and sinus appliance, which is also going to slide into the device. One other appliance I want to look at is the model scanning platform. Let me grab that. Your model scanning platform comes in this case. Let's go ahead and set this here. So your model scanning platform will fit where the chin rest was. And if you notice on top of the model scanning platform, there's this clear plastic. This is where your cast model will sit. Simply place the model scanning platform in the device right there. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that. We'll put it back in its case here. And we're going to go ahead and place the chin rest back into the device. All right, let's go ahead and look at cleaning and care for the device. With cleaning and care, you want to use a hydrogen peroxide based wipe. We do not want to spray on the device, but just use a hydrogen peroxide based wipe to wipe off the areas. So I've got my hydrogen peroxide based wipes here. We're going to wipe the device down. We're going to go ahead and grab a dry cloth and then dry that area off. One last thing we want to talk about is the location of the serial number of your device. The serial number is on the rear column and starts with a 3-digit 0, 2 numbers, and a dash. If you do need to call in for service or talking to education, you want to make sure you have that available for our technicians when you do call.
To take a CBCT, we will start inside of EzDent-i with a patient chart open. From there, we simply click on the acquisition tab on the top of the screen and select CT from the left panel. It will then open up the CBCT interface to make our selections. Beginning with the gender options on the lower portion of the screen, the options are man, woman, child. Note, if the child is 12 or under in the system, it will automatically select child as the default. To the right are the patient density settings. Options include hard, standard, which is your default, and soft. Next, focusing on our field of view section to select our scan size. Field of view sizes range from the largest size 18 by 15 down to an endo size 4 by 4 scan. Note, in this video, our largest field of view size is 18 by 15. However, the Green X device is also available with a maximum field of view size of 16 by 9 as well. The field of view is going to be the diameter by the height. For example, the largest size field of view is 18 by 15, so that is 18 centimeters in diameter by 15 centimeters high. The 18 by 15 scan, along with the 16 by 11 scan, will both encompass full arch, sinus left and right, and TMJ. The 12 by 9 scan will encompass the maxillary and mandibular arches, including third molars. The 18 by 15, 16 by 11, 16 by 9, and the 12 by 9 scans are all at 9-second scan time. Moving down to the 8 by 8 size scan will allow you to capture both the maxillary and the mandibular section of either the right, center, or left side of the patient's dentition under the horizontal options. Moving to 8 by 5 size is appropriate for a quadrant. So under the vertical options, this is where we can begin to set maxilla or mandible and select right, center, or left side. Moving down to the 5 by 5 field of view is where we can select a tooth from our tooth chart. A 5 by 5 is appropriate for one tooth, so we simply select the tooth on the screen and we made our selection. The 8 by 8 8x5, and 5x5 scan sizes are all 2.9 seconds of scan time. The smallest field of view is set under the endo mode. This is a 4x4 volume and 50 micron voxel size. It is ideal for endodontic use because the dentist is able to achieve the highest quality image in a high resolution voxel size. So if we click endo, that is taking a 4x4 scan appropriate for one single tooth. So again, all we need to do is select the tooth that we would like to scan and we hit confirm. Once our field of view is selected, additional options include high resolutions for best quality and the green setting for reduced radiation, as well as voxel size options below this. Options include standard for highest quality and application for a larger voxel size. Also notice the message information area on the bottom left of the screen, always displaying the status / next steps. Next, simply click confirm. The machine will rotate to capture position and we can position our patient. In preparation, have the patient remove all metal objects from the neck up, including necklaces, eyeglasses, earrings, and any other metal objects.
Let's review CBCT capture for your Vatech Green X. The Vatech Green X comes with a single chin rest. Options for CBCT capture are utilizing your bite stick. You can also utilize the edentulous chin cup if you want your patient in a centric occlusion. We're going to leave the bite stick in for this demonstration. We're going to bring our patient back for CBCT capture. I'm going to go ahead and stand up straight and tall for me. I'm going to go ahead and raise the column up. With CBCT capture, I want the patient with a flat occlusion, the occlusion being parallel to the floor. A couple things to start with for patient positioning. I'm going to start with the hands. Go ahead and hands palm facing up. Go ahead and walk forward, feet shoulder length apart. Then I'm going to have the patient bite on the bite stick. In this case, I need to bring the column down a little bit. You go ahead, open and bite on the bite stick. Smile really big. I can see the patient's biting in the bite stick groove. I'm going to push down on the bite stick to ensure the chin is on the chin rest. Next, I'm going to make sure the patient is lined up center. We're going to go ahead and get you lined up center here. Perfect. Chin's on the chin rest. Couple things to note. We have a horizontal beam shining on the right side of the patient's face. Depending on the field of view you've chosen, depends where that horizontal beam will be located. The important thing to remember that the horizontal beam is the center of the height. So if we have a 15 centimeter in height scan, the horizontal area above this, we're going to be capturing 7.5 centimeters above and 7.5 centimeters below. You'll also notice the lower horizontal beam, which shines on the patient's neck. That is shining off the base of the X-ray tube, which denotes the rotation. This will give us a way to see if the overhead will be bumping their shoulders. I have my patient biting on the bite stick. I have my patient smile really big for me. I can see the occlusion is flat or parallel to the floor. You can relax your lips. If we did need to adjust the patient height up or down for capture, on the front of the touchpad, I actually have chin rest up or down. So you can see if I move the chin rest down, it's going to lower the patient down, therefore raising the scan higher or further superior. If I raise the chin rest up, we can see that the center of the field of view has lowered, so we're going to capture further inferior. Next, I'm going to go ahead and close my temple supports. And I want to make sure this is tight, so I turn it a couple extra times to ensure that the patient does not move. I'm going to adjust our patient's head a little bit to make sure they're lined up center. Mid-sagittal beam right between the eyes and right through the philtrum. And now we are ready to capture our CBCT. I'm going to have the patient just go ahead and close your eyes, relax, and with CBCT capture, the patient can just relax their tongue. So I'm going to click on the Ready Return button.
The system is moving into image capturing position. Please wait.
When capturing your CBCT, it's very important to make sure that the patient does not move and remains as still as possible. Once this gets into position for capture, it will also tell the patient to close their eyes.
The system is ready to capture an image. Please close your eyes until image capturing is complete.
Go ahead and step out of the room and capture our image.
Hold the button on the acquisition trigger switch, which will turn yellow when exposing. Hold the button until the image acquisition is fully complete.
Image capturing is complete. Please wait a moment.
Once capture is complete, the device will have the patient open their eyes. The instructions I provided to the patient is I'm going to go ahead and open the temple supports and have them go ahead and step back and out of the device.
To take a CBCT, we will start inside of EzDent-i with a patient chart open. From there, we simply click on the Acquisition tab on the top of the screen and select CT from the left panel. It will then open up the CBCT interface to make our selections. Beginning with the gender options on the lower portion of the screen, the options are man, woman, child. Note, if the child is 12 or under in the system, it will automatically select child as the default. To the right are the patient density settings. Options include hard, standard, which is your default, and soft. Next, focusing on our field of view section to select our scan size. This video will focus on the smaller fields of view sizes 5x5 and endo 4x4. The field of view is going to be the diameter by the height. The 5x5 field of view is where we can select a tooth from our tooth chart. A 5x5 is appropriate for one tooth, so we simply select the tooth on the screen and we made our selection. The smallest size is set under the endo mode. This is a 4x4 volume and 50 micron voxel size. It is ideal for endodontic use because the dentist is able to achieve the highest quality image in a high resolution voxel size. So if we click endo, that is taking a 4x4 scan appropriate for one single tooth. So again, all we need to do is select the tooth that we would like to scan and we hit confirm. Once our field of view is selected, additional options include high resolutions for best quality and the green setting for reduced radiation. As well as voxel size options below this, options include standard for highest quality and application for a larger voxel size. On the endo 4x4, the standard and application are both set to 0.05 voxel size for best quality. Also notice the message information area on the bottom left of the screen, always displaying the status / next steps. Next, simply click confirm. The machine will rotate to capture position and we can position our patient. In preparation, have the patient remove all metal objects from the neck up, including necklaces, eyeglasses, earrings, and any other metal objects.
CBCT capture for your small field of view, either 5x5 or 4x4 capture program gives us the option to take a scout. So we're going to set this up with a scout.
When taking a 4x4 scan, the system will automatically prompt you to select yes or no if you want to take a scout image. A scout image is a low-dose preview of the selected area to ensure you will capture all of the given anatomy. To take this image, select yes and hold down the exposure button for a quick preview image. Reposition the center line as necessary, or if satisfied with the results, click ready to continue image acquisition.
Once I have our scout initialized, I'm going to go ahead and position our patient. So let's raise this up. I'm going to have my patient go ahead and stand over here. Stand up straight and tall for me. I'm going to lower the column down. I'm going to have my patient hold with the palms facing up, feet shoulder length apart. Bring the patient onto the bite stick and bite in the bite stick groove. And I'm going to make sure their chin is firmly on the chin rest. Next we will move and go ahead and just gently open. And I'm just twisting you this way. There you go. Go ahead and close. I have the patient lined up center, right between the eyes, right through the philtrum. In this case, my goal is to capture tooth number 9. So we're in the maxilla. You can see the horizontal beam in the maxilla. I'm going to go ahead and close my temple supports. Let's straighten our patient out here a little bit. There we are, right there. I'm going to click ready.
Is complete.
Go ahead and step out of the room and capture our image.
Hold the button on the acquisition trigger switch, which will turn yellow when exposing. Hold the button until the image acquisition is fully
Image
complete.
capturing is complete. Please wait a moment. Patient safety is our top priority, and we are a radiation-safe dental clinic that uses a low-dose CT. Please wait a moment.
Once capture is complete, the device will have the patient open their eyes. The instructions I provided the patient is I'm going to go ahead and open the temple supports and have them go ahead and step back and out of the device.
On our acquisition machine, the CT will automatically save for you, take us back to the patient's chart in EzDent-i for review. To take a 2D panoramic image with our patient chart up within EzDent-i, we're simply going to click on the Acquisition tab on the top of the screen and select Panorama from the panel to the left. It will then take us into the interface screen to select our options. First, we start with patient gender, man, woman, or child. Note, the system will automatically select child if the age of the patient is 12 or under. To the right of gender, we have exposure-based settings based on the patient's density size. Options are hard, standard, or soft. Moving to the right side of the screen under the normal panel options are the normal setting, providing a normal panoramic image, the magic pan, providing a single optimal panoramic image having multiple focal images combined. Moving on to image option below that are high resolution for best quality and the green setting for reduced radiation. Next, select an arch size option, narrow, normal, or wide. Moving down further to panel examination area, standard is your default, capturing all dentition and condyles. Additional options include right side only, left side only, and also front. Also notice the message information area on the bottom left of the screen, always displaying the status / next steps. Once our selections are made, we can simply click confirm. The next step is to allow the machine to rotate to the acquired position, and then we can position our patient. In preparation, have the patient remove all metal objects from the neck up, including necklaces, eyeglasses, earrings, and any other metal objects.
Let's start with patient positioning for our 2D panoramic image. First, I'm going to have my patient step into the device. Go ahead and stand up straight and tall for me. And the first thing I do is I evaluate the chin rest to the base of her chin. I want the patient to be able to just put the chin on the chin rest. So I'm going to evaluate that, column up or column down to adjust. Then I'm going to start with the patient's hands, feet, and then finally have the patient bite in the bite stick. So let's start with the hands first. I'm going to have my patient hold on the hand rest with their palms facing up. Walk forward and have your feet shoulder length apart. At this point, I'm going to have the patient open and go ahead and move forward and bite on the bite stick. Smile really big for me. I can see that the patient's in the bite stick groove. And I want to gently push on the bite stick to ensure the patient's chin is firm on the chin rest. Once I have the patient in the device, I'm then going to work with my positioning beams to make sure they are properly positioned. So first I want to start with my mid-sagittal beam, and I'm going to go ahead and have the patient put gently open and gently close on the bite stick. We're going to get you there. Perfect. I have my patient right on the bite stick. I can see my mid-sagittal beam right between the eyes and right through the philtrum. Next thing I want to do is look at the patient's occlusion. I want a natural head position or the patient's occlusion tipped down 10 degrees. Go ahead and smile for me really big. And to me it looks like the patient's occlusion is very flat, and I want to lower the patient's head down. I'm going to do that by the column up or down, so I'm going to lower the column, which is going to tip the patient's head down. Go ahead and smile again, and I can see my occlusion is tipped down about 10 degrees.
As a tip, the objective of this beam is to have the head tilted and the occlusion at a 10-degree angle when positioned in the machine, which produces a slight smile effect in the pan. We do have our Frankfurt horizontal beam shining on the patient's right side of their face.
I can use my beam up or down to position this. So 2 reference points for that beam, top of the tragus to the informal notch of the eye, is another reference point you can use when positioning the patient's head. Next, I'm going to go ahead and close my temple supports, and on the green platform, I can just use the wheel on the side of the column here and tighten the patient down. And I want to ensure the patient's lined up. I'm going to go ahead and twist here so you can see that the patient is back lined up center. On this wheel, right now, the temple supports are just touching the head. I want to actually crank that down so you can see, make sure that that's very firm. Lastly, let's look at the canine beam. I'm going to line the canine beam up. Go ahead and smile really big for me, and we're going to line the canine beam up right to the center of the canine. Perfect. All right. One other thing to note, on the Green X platform, off of the X-ray tube head, there is also another beam that shines. This denotes the rotation of the device. If this beam is hitting the patient's shoulders, we may have to work with the patient for patient positioning, but as you can see here, it's at the base of the neck, and that just allows us or lets us estimate the rotation of the device, ensuring the device will not hit the patient's head. Next, I'm going to double check and make sure the patient's lined up center. I'm going to go ahead and select my ready return.
The system is moving into image capturing position. Please wait.
When we're positioning for our panoramic image, I'm going to have my patient close their eyes, close their lips around the bite stick, and also swallow and keep the tongue flat to the roof of the mouth.
The system is ready to capture an image. Please close your eyes until image capturing is complete.
We'll now step out of the room and capture our image.
Hold the button until the image acquisition is fully complete.
Image capturing is complete. Please wait a moment.
Once image capture is complete and the overhead stops rotating, we can let our patient out of the device. I'm going to go ahead and release the temple supports by opening them here with the wheel. We can go ahead and have our patient step out of the machine. The Vatech Green X platform also includes 2-dimensional external bite wings, and let's look at patient positioning for that now. I'm going to go and bring my patient back. And patient positioning for extraoral bite wings is very similar to taking your panoramic image. Really the difference is the location of the canine beam. So we're going to go through our patient positioning protocol, starting with our hands and our feet. So hands, palms facing up, feet shoulder length apart. I'm going to have you go ahead and open and bite on the bite stick. I'm going to ensure that the patient's chin is firm on the chin rest. Next, we are going to line the patient up center. Smile really big for me. We're ensuring the occlusion is tipped down about 10 degrees, or that natural head position. Next, I'm going to go ahead and close my temple supports and line the canine beam just mesial the canine, or just in front of the canine, specifically for our bite wing feature. Smile really big again. All right, go ahead and relax.
The system is ready to capture an image. Please close your eyes until image capturing is complete.
We'll now step out of the room and capture our image.
Hold the button until the image acquisition is fully complete.
Image capturing is complete. Please wait a moment.
Once image capture is complete and the overhead stops rotating, we can let our patient out of the device. I'm going to go ahead and release the temple supports by opening them here with the wheel. We can go ahead and have our patient step out of the machine. Let's look at some patient position accessories. The Green X includes the bite stick. We also have the edentulous cup, which will be utilized if we have a patient that's fully edentulous, maybe missing their anteriors, or cannot get their anteriors biting in the bite stick groove. To demonstrate this, we're going to put our edentulous cup in. I'm going to bring my patient back into the device. Go kind of back through our patient positioning protocol with the hands, palms facing up, feet shoulder length apart. And in this case, I'm going to raise the column up a little bit and go ahead and just rest your chin and go ahead and move back and right in that groove there. We would then go through our patient positioning, aligning the patient up center. For the pan, also checking the occlusion, making sure it's tipped down about 10 degrees. Finally, closing our temple supports. And then lining up our canine beam. Go ahead and then let our patient out of the device. You can go ahead and take a step back. So Paul, we just went through, patient positioning on the cone beam here, and I think it's important to do a little bit of talking about CT image quality and evaluation. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Taking a look at your images immediately after you take them is a great idea to verify you captured the proper anatomy and making sure everything looks the way it should.
For sure, and I think that also does then the patient's still there, and then do I need to retake the image because I've just evaluated? So that's going to be save a lot of headache for the office and the patient. So Paul, what really causes distortion whenever we get poor quality images?
Well, the distortion, the number one issue that we come across training clients is definitely patient movement, I would say, is a big factor, making sure that the patient is secured in the machine, you have the temple rod secured, clicking that acquisition button, ensuring that they're not moving, because when the patient, if they move even the slightest bit, you can see some ghosting and distortion in that image, for sure.
Yeah, we just talked about that of, ensuring the patient's stable and all those things. So let's look at, I'm going to bring up one image here, and I'm going to bring up this virtual rendering we can see, and look how clear it is. I mean, I'm seeing clear definition on the root tips all the way through the mandible in this image here. Now, what happens when we see patient movement? What are you seeing here, Paul, on this image?
A lot of blurriness. I can see there's not much definition around, in the gum area, and it's overall blurry because of the patient movement.
Right. Yeah. Let's look at a comparison here. Here's a side by side. I mean, there's no comparison there. But yeah, the blurriness on the left is definitely from patient movement.
Right.
Paul, I'm going to open up a data set here that is a really clean image, and actually it's the data set from the image on the right hand side. So I've got it open right here, and we can see as we go through this, let's even look at our axial cut here, and I'm going to scroll superior inferior. You can see nice clean definition on this data set here. There's really no distortion.
Right.
Clean lines there. So let's go back into our EzDent-i here, and I'm going to go ahead and launch another data set here. So I've opened up the data set, and this one you can see a lot of distortion. And Paul, I'll let you kind of run through, and we can start with the virtual rendering, maybe move the axial and then the coronal, and kind of describe what we're seeing here.
In this case, it's a situation where the patient, as the scan was being taken, we can see that one side is fairly clear. They moved during the scan, so causing that entire right side there to be completely distorted. And you can see it especially in the coronal view, where they probably moved their whole head, moving that jaw left and right there, creating that kind of a ghosted image. You kind of see the jaw there about 3 times in there, creating that overlapping ghosting image there.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm following the ramus down here, and then as you described, here's another ghosting, so you can see a lot of ghosting through here, whereas we look on the patient's left side, look how clear it is here, which is also translated in the mandible, patient's right side versus the left side here. Yep, on there. So that's a very good example of looking and recognizing patient movement within a scan. I'm going to go ahead and jump back to EzDent-i software here. Did you want to add something here?
I was just going to say the reason is a lot of these times because we see essentially where the ramus is, you see 3 separate images almost. That's probably because they just quickly move their jaw because the machine's going around. So if they do a faster movement of their jaw, you'll see more ghosted images like that.
Exactly. I agree. Yep. Let's go ahead and open up EzDent-i. And I did want to highlight a couple of other images here. And here's another image where we've got patients with patient movement here. You can see on the anterior, you've got the ghosting images, a ghosting of the incisal edge, and several layers of distortion there. And in another comparison here, we've got left side, you see that streaking effect, and on the right side, really clear, nice definition on the data that we're seeing there. Also wanted to touch on something else you may see in the cone beams, and this shouldn't be there. So if you do see any circles within the data, you can see here we have got one circle, two circles within the axial cut, and some long, dark vertical lines in the other. This is where the device needs to have like a beam alignment or some internal adjustments on there. So if by chance you do see that, that is something else that we would need to have our service team log in and adjust. So Paul, we just finished up looking at patient movement. Now let's look at a little bit of distortion that you see or artifact you see in scans that's highlighted as scatter in the images. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and enlarge our 3D rendering here. And we can see off of any dense areas, you can see a little bit of scatter or streaking effect in the image. And there are, our compressed sensing technology to reduce that, but you're going to get a little bit of scatter in the data sets, and that is nature of cone beam right now. And you can see what that looks like off the crowns here. Some dense objects is this streaking effect right through here. Let's go ahead and look at our axial cut to look at how the software handles that metal. So you can see our two implants here. And I'm going to scroll through and let's enlarge this and bring this to the center here. So you can see we have a very little scatter off of there, some streaking effect, but the software handles that very well through that compressed sensing technology through there. And we can scroll back down and let's look on our axial cut here off the gutta percha and our crowns. You see a very little streaking effect through there, but that is some of that beam hardening within the data set itself.
And that scatter, Jim, is basically the beam bouncing off of the restoration or the implant, creating that streaking.
That is correct. Yeah, it cannot pass through. Yeah, so it is a reflection off of there. And like we talked about, Vatech does have its third generation compressed sensing technology to reduce that down, but you will see a little bit of that scatter within your data sets. That's why it's very important to make sure, like we talked about when we were doing our patient positioning, to ensure that that patient is positioned and their occlusion is flat or parallel with the floor, because the scatter only streaks horizontal through there. And I think that about sums up what we wanted to talk about. We touched on looking at scatter. We talked about evaluating patient movement. And then we also talked about if we see any distortion in the images with that, redoing that beam alignment on the device. So I think that kind of concludes what we wanted to review on CBCT image evaluation.
So Jim, why don't we talk about some fundamentals of hand positioning and common things that can occur in your images?
That sounds great, Paul. I mean, we just finished our patient positioning portion, and now let's look at images. And on screen here, I would consider this a high quality image. I've got my clear anteriors, a nice smile there. My condyles are straight up and down. So the question is, what do we look for in Pan IQ?
Right. Several things.
And why don't you describe on here, take me through what we're seeing here and what those 6 or 7 evaluation techniques we use to look at a pan.
Yeah, so the dashed white lines kind of outline just what we're looking at. We don't want the occlusion flat. We want a slight smile by having that 10-degree angle of the posterior teeth in there, which creates that slight smile you see there. You have the palate is nice and flat up there. It's designated by those white double-digit lines there. The condyles are even. One side's not tilted or larger than the other. And the chin there is in a slant position.
Right. So that's what we look for when we're evaluating. The thing is, we're working with patients and they may not be compliant to what we've asked them to do. And one thing that happens all the time, and you all know that, is where they bite on the bite stick too far forward. They bite in front of the groove, and maybe we don't have our canine light properly aligned. And Paul, what do we see here that usually happens when we're out of that focal trough?
Well, what we see blurry anteriors, and even in this one, the spine position is out of position. You want to have that spine as upright as possible, even before they bite on the bite stick. Visualize where that spine is. You want it very upright. Have them bite in the bite grooves. Make sure they're biting in the bite grooves to avoid this issue.
Right. Now, there's also another extreme if they're biting too far back off of the bite stick, or maybe the canine light is not lined up. We have that too far mesial. This is where we get that blurry anterior there, you can see. And so we're out of that focal trough.
Right.
And it's causing that blurry anterior.
So in this next image, we can see that the patient's head is basically tilted too far down. They're angled too forward and too far down. So you can see the curvature there, the occlusal plane is off. So the solution would be to get them in an ideal resting position and get that Frankfurt plane aligned properly. So we have that Frankfurt plane from the tragus to the bottom of the orbit. Just basically a natural head position would avoid this issue. So I would, be grabbing their head and just positioning it back a little bit further.
And maybe having the maxillary occlusion tip down right about 10 degrees so we don't get that sharp V in this pan here.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And on the opposite spectrum, where their head's tipped up too high, that causes that frown. And you can see those condyles are tipped out. So that's what we're going to see when we have the patients with their head tipped up too high. It's going to cause the pan with a frown. So do not want this image here. Paul, let you talk about this one here where maybe the head's tilted one way or the other.
Yeah. So we can see on that image on the right there, the head, they're just tilted way too much to the right. So aligning your mid-sagittal beam through the center of the head will avoid this issue.
And then the result, if they are positioned like this, is you get magnification on one side, the right side versus the left side on your panoramic itself. Now, the other factor that could happen is where their head's twisted. So that line could look like it's right through the center of the patient, the mid-sagittal beam, but they could be twisted. And if that happens, you get elongation where the ramus gets stretched out or your molars get stretched out, and you can see that is highlighted here with the double arrows on right side versus left side.
Right.
This next slide, Paul, I think we all come across this where we ask the patient to put the tongue flat to the roof of the mouth and they don't, or how are we telling them? So here we can see where we have the dark shadow going through the maxillary arch. That is actually the air that's behind the front teeth. And several offices, when we instruct them on how to position, how to relate this to the patient, I have them swallow and then keep the tongue flat to the roof of the mouth. And that should eliminate that shadow that is interfering with those maxillary teeth there. Often we see lower anterior distortion, and that's where we have the patient they're not standing up straight. We want that spine straight and their chest right up against the chin rest there. And we talked about that when we did our patient positioning a little while ago. So it's really important to make sure that their body is right up against that, spine is vertical, and that's gonna eliminate having that washed out anterior region there. Paul, what happens whenever the patient moves? If we don't have those temple supports tight, what happens then?
The entire image usually is going to be blurry and not well defined.
Yeah, so that's really important to get those temple supports nice and tight, and that's going to eliminate any or reduce the chance for any patient movement there. If we are using a lead apron and we see any radiopaque triangles at the inferior border of the pan, that's going to be where the lead apron was improperly positioned. So I always say you want to have the lead apron high in the front and low in the back. Since when we're imaging our anteriors, we want to make sure that that lead apron is properly positioned on the patient, and that's going to remove any artifact that we have at the inferior border of the pan itself.
Right. And
take us through a brief overview of, like image that's too light or too dark, underexposed, overexposed. What happens there? What has happened if we see that?
So when you see an image like that, a lot of times if it's too light, we're underexposing it. And if it's too dark, we're overexposing it.
The Vatech software, as we just reviewed, it auto sets the KV and the MA and the time based on the patient, the age of the patient, and the morphology. Sometimes if we forget to set that, or if we forget to add patient information or change man, woman, and child, this is when this could cause underexposure or overexposure. So always make sure that we have it on the proper patient's body type and bone density, and we should not have this issue here.
So Jim, in this next image, we can see the patient clearly has earrings on, and that will not only show up in your image, it'll cause streaking. That's what we can see in the upper two white boxes on top there. As it goes around, it causes streaking on the opposite sides.
Yeah, so ensure taking off jewelry, glasses, necklaces, right?
We recommend, having the patient take off anything metal from the neck up as much as possible.
I agree. That's going to give us that clean image without that distortion and streaking effect there.
Right.
So here's a really nice image. I would say this patient's been positioned properly, but Paul, what are you seeing in the image?
Well, I would say the head's tilted slightly, but we see the earrings in the image. And then again, also the streaking above that look like little rectangles are from the earrings.
Yeah, so I think that's the thing of, we get our earrings in here and the sinuses, we get that streaking effect and the distortion above those earrings. Otherwise, beautiful pan. Let's look at one more before we conclude. What are you seeing here on this image?
See that little white area on the bottom portion of the image, which is going to be the vest essentially creeping up on the back of the neck, causing that little white spot there.
So Paul, I think that concludes our review of the panoramic imaging troubleshooting or image IQ. I think the main things are ensuring that we are positioning the patient proper, taking off the jewelry, which should result in a clinically diagnostic image. Now that we have captured our CBCT data, let's go ahead and look at some of the basics in the EZ3DI software. First, I'm going to double click on the CT icon, and this will launch our EZ3DI software. First thing I would like to do is look at our main menu and settings. Things to change: teeth code, make sure this is set on universal. We want to come over here to view, 3D viewer, change plane type from outline to plane. Next, we will navigate to 2D viewer, change our panorama view default thickness to either 10 or 20 millimeters. Lastly, we will click on Navigator, go to Volume Panoramic Navigator, default interval, we want to change it to 1 millimeter. From there, we will select OK. An overview of the EZ3DI software. You'll notice at the top tabs, MPR, section, all the way through consult. These are various different tabs and clinical functionality. For this training, we will start in the MPR, and we will also work in 3D Pan. Your MPR window consists of 4 sub-windows. Your coronal, and you'll notice it's highlighted in yellow here.
your axial, which is highlighted in blue, and your sagittal, which is highlighted in reddish orange. Note in the corresponding windows the color slices here. So I have my red reference line. If I grab this, left click and drag, I am dragging lateral and medial and moving the sagittal window. The blue axial line, if I drag this up superior and down inferior, also changes in the three windows. Lastly, my coronal yellow line, I can move this anterior and posterior. Another way to move this line is to use the wheel on your mouse. Simply roll the wheel and you will see the image scrolling up or down, in this case, in your axial window. Another thing to note, everything is highlighted. Your axial has right here, left, sagittal shows anterior and posterior. The lower right window in this case is your 3D virtual rendering. I can left click and drag and move this around. We also have our quick icons at the bottom, which we can click through. To enlarge one of these windows, I can either hit Enter on my keyboard or I can double click on the corner of the window. In this case, I will double click on the corner of the axial window. I'm also going to hit the space bar on my keyboard, which will toggle these crosshairs on and off. Space bar toggles on. Enter will minimize that window again. Top toolbar includes features of panning, which allows you to move the image around. Left click and move this around. Magnifying in or out, left click and drag. Your measurement tool length, click, and left click will give you your length, and I can drag that out of the way. To delete, right click and delete. The next icon is your nerve trace. We will look at this in future trainings. Your camera capture, which takes a screenshot of the entire window. And one of the more important icons here is your reset view. This will reset the view to the original position. Your next icon is export. This allows you to export the CBCT data with your project, allowing the user that you're sending this to be able to open your data in a Vatech viewer. Just to the right, we have our drop down, including measurement, capture, annotation, all the way through, etc. Next, let's look at an overall view of your Vatech data. I want to grab the axial slice, move this to the superior border of the scan. I'm going to come down to my axial window, spacebar. I'm going to use the wheel on my mouse to scroll through my image. I can see on my alternate windows, my blue axial slice tells me where I'm at within the patient's anatomy. Here, maxillary sinuses, wing of the cephenoid, nasal concha, our septum. As I scroll down inferior, start to see our palate. We can look at our individual root tips, the incisive canal. Keep scrolling down. Lingula here and here. We can also see on this 3D rendering where we're at with the blue slice. Let's keep scrolling down inferior, going through our molars. You can see RTC there. And as we scroll down inferior, mental foramen on the right, epiglottis here, and now we are to the inferior border of the scan. That is my first step in reviewing my image. Next, I'm going to move my coronal slice to the front of the scan, select the spacebar, Use the wheel on the mouse and let's scroll anterior, posterior, going through 8 and 9. Gives a good visualization of our maxillary sinuses, that sinus floor, width of our ridge, height of our ridge. And I'm following with my eye, going all the way posterior back through the entire scan. Hyoid bone here. And now we are back into our spine and at the posterior border of the scan. I'm now going to select the spacebar and reset my scan. That is our MPR window, brief overview. I'm going to go into my 3D pan. The 3D pan essentially takes your 3D rendering and flattens it out into a navigatable image. Here are your quick buttons. Center of the screen, we have our navigation window. I can left click and drag in a negative space to move this around, exploring the image. I can also double click on an area to navigate quickly to a certain area. In this case, I'm going to go over to my virtual rendering or VR coloring and select MIP or maximum intensity projection. Here you will see the grayscale of the image. Next, I will double click on tooth number 19. I'm going to come here to these blue circles and left click and rotate. As I do that, you will notice my red lines are vertical following the long axis of tooth number 19. Below this, I have my section. You can see your buccal and your lingual. These 3 vertical red lines correspond to my 3 sections at the bottom of the image. I will now double click on the single center image for one image. If I use the wheel on the mouse, I am scrolling back distal and then mesial. I can also drag this blue line to the crest of the ridge. I'm going to come up and take a measurement across the ridge and down to our nerve. Left click to drag these 2 measurements out of the way. Now I'm going to go ahead and place my implant. Go over to the left, insert implant. For this demonstration, we will look at single implant, number 19. I can select my company here. In this case, I have Neodent. We are on the GM Helix implant lineup. I'm going to come down to scroll through, find my implant. Select Insert, and I get this pop-up window that tells me to place the implant. It's telling me to place number 19. Come down to my sectional slice, and I'm going to click wherever I want the crest or the platform of the implant. I can click on my implant and rotate as needed, and we can see our implant placed on this window. I do have my bone density window here. I can rotate around. I see this green arrow, which corresponds to my scout. We are looking buccal in lingual. Grayscale or density range on the left, and it is also color-coded on the implant. From here, I may come in and take a screenshot. I'm going to navigate back to the MPR window and change our virtual rendering. We can see our virtual rendering here. Lastly, I want to look at exporting our data. If I come up to the icon here, export, click on this, change this to local disk. I'm going to add the viewer. I'm going to click on save. This will allow us to export this to your desktop or a designated location, which includes
the viewer and the DICOM. This was meant to be a brief tutorial to get you started navigating the software. You can find additional training modules in the Vatech Education Academy, which will guide you through your process of learning this software.
This concludes our training session for today. If you do have any questions, feel free to email us. You can also sign up for additional training at our Vatech Education Academy on the online scheduler. Thank you for choosing Vatech as your valued imaging partner.